Hi guys, welcome to the Improvement Season podcast. It's me, Steve Hall, and this time I'm in a new location.
Oh, yeah.
I know we've introed before with Pascal being in different locations. You've actually moved, when we consider the Improvement Season, how many times have you moved? Like, even when you were studying, we recorded some episodes when you were in like temporary accommodation.
I didn't even think about that one. Then it must have been like three times. Three times, but also then inside the apartment, I've moved a couple of times. When I moved to Katie's place, I was once in the living room, then I was at in our bedroom, then moved over to Hugo's bedroom, and then also here moved kind of different places, and then also the studying thing as well, quite often. And you didn't really move at all during that time. Yeah, I mean, you moved from that old apartment over to the other apartment and now here into the new house.
Oh, God.
It's all right. People have to accept it now.
Oh, dear. Luckily, in the old place, we were 9 floors up, so you'd never hear, you wouldn't really hear dogs outside. But here, that's about the only noise you do get. You will get, loud dogs now and then, which sets Ada off. And we get what they called foxes at night, shagging, and they make the worst noise.
Yeah.
They're screaming.
Yeah, it's it's very weird because you look at them and you don't really expect the noise that they are doing or making.
No, it sounds like a woman is screaming for her life, high pitched squeals, almost. It's a very strange one. What was I going to say? Yeah, we only moved from Clapham to here. So a shout out to anyone who remembers the podcasts that I recorded back in Clapham because, man, that was, me and Charlotte joke about it all the time, how bad the internet was there. Having to upload the podcast overnight because we couldn't use our phones on the Wi-Fi, or you couldn't use a smart TV and your phone. It just wouldn't work. Whereas now, here, even the internet's really good, which is great because I know you had bad experiences with the internet. But so far, fingers crossed, it's been great. It's not fiber. Have you got fiber?
No, not yet. I mean, it's still upload speed of 50 Mbit, which is what I wanted. Cool. So that's good. That's sufficient. Of course, we could always use more, but if we are also spoiled to some extent, right? I mean, when we look back, not that long ago, it was still 16 Mbits, something like you had in your old apartment. And also other things as well, like technology in terms of computers. Man, I do remember my first computer at the age of, so I was very, super big, 166 megahertz. I was playing Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, and when the theme park was growing too big, I couldn't continue playing. That's how bad that computer was.
Oh,
right, and now the mobile devices, like the smartphones, are even much, much better than those. Just imagine that.
I was looking at the internet options here, and we don't have fiber, but there are options where there's hundreds or 400 gigabyte upload speed, and it's just who would need this? This is ridiculous.
It's often for companies, right? I mean,
I suppose if there's a lot of people using it, that's a good idea. Yeah, good point. I think mine's 60 as well though here now, so that's good.
How has everything been for you guys? Moving? Was it stressful? How was it on your body? Tell the audience a little bit about it, because I mean, let's face it, it also, of course, impacts your training and nutrition as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I apologize to the audience again for Ada. She is slowly getting used to the house, but she will sometimes just run this. We have the same as you. So we have a loft conversion, we have a second floor and a ground.
Nice.
And she'll just or rather a first floor and then a loft. I always call this the second floor. It's well, it's a ground floor and then a first floor. Yeah. So anyway, she'd run around and she's not sure where she belongs. Whereas in the flat, she knows where she belongs. Just lie on the bed, be quiet. That's where she goes.
That sounds so terrible.
I know. I used to feel bad.
Here's your cage. You're not allowed to come out here.
The cool thing is already And we found this quite, like, it took us a while to get comfortable leaving Ada outside of her crate, but for the longest time, I'm not at the moment letting her roam the whole house because that would maybe be a bit much. I'm like, I don't know what she'd get into, especially because nothing, like, we've just got crap everywhere. But I'll leave her like in one room and she can just like stay there. And if she barks loads, then who cares? Like, the neighbors can complain, but there's nothing they can do. She's not normally that barky anyway.
It's the storage room where there's like the oats and stuff.
Well,
pitch black.
Let me answer your first question. So moving, many people will have seen it documented over on my story. I was like, I'm just going to document this. It'll be cool to look back on, I think, at some point and just be like, oh yeah, shit, that's when we moved. So it was 8 a.m. the movers came, or rather the packers came, and they were the movers, same deal. And they didn't leave us until 10 p.m. So it was literally all systems go that entire time. And they were like, crap, we should have brought 4 people and we needed 2 vans, like, for the amount of stuff you've got. And they were pretty much right, because the job in total, I mean, I ended up paying double what I should have for what was estimated. I think it's typical that normally they come around and like view it and they make an estimation there, but they didn't do that for us. I just typed in what we had, and I think they underestimated therefore what was going to have to be moved. So yeah, it was a huge ordeal. Chris Bearcat wrote on my post on Instagram, he was like, it's moving is more difficult than like a legs overreaching session. And I'm like, absolutely. It's like a day-long legs overreaching session. I felt so wrecked the day after. I couldn't believe how wrecked I actually felt. And it took a couple of days for me to feel pretty normal. My lower back still feels a little off. My shoulder was already not feeling great as I was overreaching and kind of coming into my deload. I wanted it to recover. But I think I said to you, Pascal, I thought it was a good idea to be moving during the deload, but because it was like the end of the deload, I was feeling relatively fresh and like ready to go, like you are when you want to be coming into mesocycle. But what that meant is I was like, they've just told me they needed 4 guys and they needed 2 vans. I need to help them out so much. So I just used all my energy just to like give them. So I was lifting everything up. I took the lat pull down.
Exactly.
Down
I just
9
wanted to
flights
say
of
this
stairs.
is what I saw over on Instagram. And I was like, oh shit, I thought that they have movers.
So, I mean, they looked at it and they were like, oh, we're going to have to, like, it won't fit in the lift. We're going to have to take this downstairs. And I was like, man, this is going to take those 2 together ages to carry it down. I'm like, I'm just going to fucking power through it and just take it downstairs. So I just like launched it downstairs. So yeah, it was very tiring. I have no idea how much like energy I must have burnt that day. So definitely earned a large Domino's. I think that's the second time ever I've had a large Domino's. I'm very much a medium Domino's guy. Like, I don't go for the large typically. It's a lot of calories in a large one, but definitely deserved. And then on the Sunday we had to go back to the apartment, clean it. We didn't really want to pay for a deep clean. However, just looking at the report that came today, they're like, they pick up on everything. Like, there's a crumb in the corner of the fridge. And I'm like, for fuck's sake. They've got a photo of it like zoomed in. And like, there you go.
You're not kidding. That's what they actually did.
They have like, it's not that extreme, but they are like, there was like some crumbs in like the top of the drawer or something. And they like took a photo of it. It's like, our cleaner's going to have to clean that up. So I don't know how much of the deposit we'll end up losing, but hopefully not too much. We left it in a reasonable place considering I had a gym in the spare bedroom basically. Yeah. And I did knock the walls a little bit and lent the weights like on the wall, and they make a bit of like discolor the wall. So we did that, and then Monday was like starting my new mesocycle in Yorkies. And yeah, I mean, the thing, I don't know if you have this, Pascal, but week 1 of a mesocycle, when you're pretty fresh, well, you should be always pretty fresh. Like sometimes you have to hold yourself back, but particularly like I'm in a new cool environment with pieces of kit that are upgrades from what I had been using in the gym. And like, I'm just like, man, they have so much back equipment. I want to try every machine and do everything. I'm like, no. Hold yourself back a little bit. So I've just been enjoying doing that and not pushing myself too hard, which is actually, I'm surprised my quads aren't actually saw a tool today, I don't think. I wouldn't necessarily know I trained yesterday. I probably would if I like really went out my way to try and like feel my quads out, and I wouldn't be able to have a good quad session today. But I did a good job of not wrecking those, because I definitely could have on just the Cybex hack squat versus the Matrix. Could just get more range of motion, just that little bit of extra range. And it's hilarious. I've never had a leg press in my entire training career that's any good. So I've never leg pressed consistently in my whole training career.
And now I finally
have one.
For one session, though. That was in Munich. That was when I was at the February 2019. It was when I was at the Ericam Cinema in Munich. I was then actually very early in the morning getting to that McFit, which was ages away. It was freezing cold outside, but I wanted to make it happen while the others are asleep. So I got there, and the leg press was actually very, very similar to yours, with that foot padding that is kind of angled.
Yeah.
And I always wonder why they aren't constructing the leg position or the foot position as such that you can readjust the angle.
Yeah.
Why not? It would be such an easy thing, to be honest. You don't even have to make it like in that angled fashion. You can just such as just with
a lever that just
moves. Exactly.
Yeah. Like you have on some hack squats, they allow you to have that.
Why not? It would be so great, to be honest. And that was the only time that I actually had access to like a proper leg press. And that was just for that one single session.
And I just felt really good to do that leg press and just like sink it real deep with that foot pad. But I do have to I've got some, what they called, the foam pads, the yoga pads that I used on the hack squat or like on a leg extension to get a bit more ROM. I am leaning on those behind me.
Really?
Just otherwise it wouldn't quite work how I want it to. Like I can feel, on some leg press, you can feel that your body wants to get into a certain position because you've got that range. But because the seat or whatever, the foot pad isn't quite there, you can't get into that position without fucking something up. Yeah. So I've actually got like a foam, like a square piece of foam that I bought a while ago that I might use instead because that's probably slightly better. I just bought it because
I was really considering, because I saw that over on Trevor's post, that someone has built some kind of wooden attachment to then the leg press, which you can put over, which is kind of then giving it more of an angled approach. And I was actually looking around, was searching for something like that, whether Rogue or whatever manufacturer has come up with something like this. But there's nothing alike. It would be such a smart, simple solution to maybe have an attachment that you can put over the metal piece for the feet. And it doesn't really need to be super hard on it because you are actually putting the pressure on it. And that would be amazing.
A PT in the gym, he had, the foam yoga squat wedge that I had, and they're really cheap. He would use that and then like a hip band, and he'd wrap that round like the hack squat, or he'd wrap that round like the leg press pad. So he'd almost do it like that. Well, it's like wearing squat shoes though, right? It's the same sort of thing. But a bigger emphasis.
Even on the leg press machine that I have at my gym, the angle is so uncomfortable for my body composition that even with squat shoes on, I'm not getting into a proper position. That still feels very, very hard on my groin, to be honest.
Do you still use the wooden heel inserts as well?
Yeah. That's still not enough because I'm in such a compromised position there, which is very unfortunate. And that's why I'm not using that leg press at all, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think by now, at least maybe for the listeners and those who have trained in commercial gyms, Matrix is a little bit notorious for being a bit shitty, but there's some, I would say the majority of their kit is all right. None of it is like great, like, oh, I want to train on the Matrix kit. Yeah. But the leg presses are notoriously awful in my experience for almost everyone. They might have different like versions that might be better. Like I might be using their older one that's a bit shittier, but I don't think any of them are like, oh, like that's a decent leg press.
That has been my experience as well in my old gym, which is also one of the newer gyms, but in the other place now, like ever since like last year, there's another franchise store of that gym just around the corner now where I'm training at. I think I've told you about it like ever since like last year that I'm training there, or like at the beginning of the year after the first lockdown, right? They have the new equipment line from Gym 80, Matrix. And they have the new version of the leg press, and it's still shitty. Right? And in the other gym, it was also a Matrix one. It was the one where you have those rubber handles. Whenever you're holding onto them too hard, you're actually putting the rubber handles off. It's awful, right? So yeah. Conclusion there, Matrix, especially the leg press, isn't really great. And I was even considering making a suggestion of maybe getting a hack squat in there, because I've already chatted to the owner of the gym, but he's of course just like the gym kind of franchise,
right? So
he's just running it. What is it called again? Shop
franchisee.
Yeah, but shop owner, is it the shop
manager?
Owner? Yeah, the manager basically, and I don't think that he has a say in that.
Yeah, I know. I've spoken to gym managers before, and normally it's commercial gyms that I'm talking to, and they're like, we have a budget, and we can only buy from particular brands, and I'm just like, okay, so it's all Matrix then. Fucking great.
And I even thought.
Origin.
And I'm not kidding, right? I even thought of making a suggestion that I'm buying a hack squat machine, and they just need to provide the place and the spot, and everyone is free to use it as long as I can position it in that gym. But I think that's a little bit too far, to be honest.
Yeah, I could see it if maybe like a sissy squat or something. Like I'd donate my sissy squat to a gym, like. I have no worries about doing that, but a lot of them just can't take it for like, don't know if they're liable for it or something. Because in fact, the gym they recently, my old Vauxhall one got an Origin sissy squat. I was like, cool, they got a sissy squat and it looks awesome. I went to use it. I was like, it's like it's built for people that don't want to use a sissy squat to its fullest extent. Basically, when you try and like sit deep into it, so you get a huge range of motion like I can on the one I've got here, it's got like padding behind here, so you can't do that. So it limits you to just like this little squat down, so you get a really limited range of motion. You don't really get the full benefit from it. So I'm just like, it's like a nice looking piece of kit that's just, it's like a really nice looking car that's ultimately just shit.
Yeah, it's the recurring theme, unfortunately, that we always need to ask ourselves the question of like, do you even lift, Mr. Engineer who comes up with those machines? But you can't really blame them, because just take a look around at the gym, how people train there as well. The vast majority don't really know what like proper execution and full range of motion actually means and stuff.
Yeah, it's surprising, even with good, and that's almost like, I don't know, someone who doesn't really know how to driving a really amazing car, and they just don't get out of it what they should. Or like, I don't know, loads of things. Like you might buy a really expensive microphone, but then you have no idea.
Yeah.
I think you've said this even before, where you've seen like people using really expensive microphones. They don't know how to like use it. Like that would be like me. Like I get better than a shit one, but I wouldn't be getting the most. Or like a camera. Same with like these pieces of kit. Like I see people training on it, and I'm like, oh, that's like you're doing the dirty on that like amazing piece of kit there.
Yeah, and I mean the other way around. So when it comes to those kind of things, I think that everyone who does that kind of professionally, they can get way more out of even an iPhone. They can create better videos, better pictures than people with fancy cameras who don't know how to make use of those, right? And the same goes for, like, this microphone is actually a pretty cheap one, but I didn't really want to buy kind of, I don't know, the Shure, for example, which most of the podcasters are using. It's a decent microphone, but it isn't really the absolute best there is, right? And for my purposes, this one does a fantastic job. Right? If you just were to listen to that, you would assume like, oh, this is a very, very good microphone. It was only like $60. And the Shure comes at a price of like, I think $450 or so. Like,
and I thought you were going to go to the tangent of, if you only do have Matrix gym, this is where you're going to go. You can make that shitty equipment work for you, no doubt about it.
To some extent, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at some point you are
some
also
of them you
getting,
can't, like the leg
yeah,
press.
and especially when it comes to kind of machines that are kind of bound in their movement pattern and in their range of motion. There's only so much that you can do in order to make it work for you, and sometimes there's no way that you can make it work for you. Like, for example, I don't know, female, she's 140 tall, right? These kind of angled chest supported T-bar rows. How does she want to get up there? Impossible often, right? And it's easier than to just like go with a different option.
I was thinking actually, even like the Matrix hack squat where I use the yoga blocks, for someone who's like under 5'5" or 5'5" and below, they're never going to get full range of motion on that thing. Like they're always going to hit the pins. Like it's just never going to work for them. So yeah. Anyway, so that was cool, being able to train at that gym, and I can't wait to, like, I don't know, just have people like yourself and everything to visit at some point, and we can go train there and everything. If it kind of feels like it is a gym made for me, because on the walls, you probably saw the photos, as like Gohan Super Saiyan 2 has Goku and Super Saiyan God like painted on the walls. Like it's just very cool. Like it's not a perfect gym. Like it hasn't got a seated leg curl, for example. It hasn't really got any ab machines. It's got one ab machine. Actually, it's got a decline crunch as well, but nothing like they're things I miss. I miss the Matrix crunch and the Matrix leg curl. There's only a standing leg curl, lying leg curl. I say only, but I like the seated one really. But I can make very good progress at this gym, which is cool.
Exactly. I think finding there, just from the top of my head, that doesn't mean that I have been to those places, but those are very prominent places, like Dragon Slayer, where you've been in Las Vegas, or Das Gym in Vienna. These are gyms where I think like these are getting close to being the perfect gym, of like having freaking amazing equipment and also a great atmosphere, great people there, right? But these are just like from the top of my head, like two gyms that I can think of. There are probably plenty of other places that I don't know about, but still in the grand scheme of things, it's probably not more than, I don't know, 20 to 50 or so, like good gyms all across the world, at least for our purposes.
Yeah, for
or
sure.
Or what we deem as like maybe the perfect gym.
Yeah. So I feel like it's an upgrade. And in that way, I feel really blessed in terms of this house, because it all kind of, the stars all kind of aligned, like in terms of the previous house that you knew, and I don't know if the listeners, I think we did talk about it, like our offer fell through and like it all just went to shit basically. Whereas this one, like it was hard work to get it all through in the end. It was very stressful to get it all through. But like I have a dedicated office space. The kitchen is an extension and the newest part of the building, and Charlotte loves like baking and cooking, so the kitchen's really, really nice, and it has lots of potential. We can do a lot to it, but it's livable. And then like the fact that Tooting's a nice up and coming area, it's got a lot going on here. Like we actually have things here, like a post office, and like there's a B&Q, and there's like just shops and things available on the high street. Whereas in Vauxhall, we're very much like you had to travel always to get to somewhere. And then the thing I said to you that has been like, I have done it the last few days to Charlotte. I'm like, just stop. If Ada wasn't making noise, it's just like silence. Now and then you probably get it as well. There's like someone's doing a bit of building work in that property, and I don't know, someone coughs and I can hear them because we are, what's it called? We're a terraced house, so we're not a freestanding house. But it's so different, and I don't feel like I'm in central London when I just like walk around these roads here. If I go too far out, I go onto like the high street, or like I hit like Tooting over this way. But if if I stick around here, it feels very much like I could be in like Harpenden where I live at home. And it's very peaceful. So I feel very fortunate to have like landed this place. So I'm very
that's
happy
amazing
to be here.
Especially when it's your first house, because that is something that I said to Katie. Even if you've never bought a house, you don't really know what to look for, because there are kind of couple of houses just around us that are right on a trainway, and also on the main road, for example, stuff like that. Or I don't even know whether you have that in the UK, but Kopfsteinpflaster, this is like a street where there are just like a bunch of bigger stones, and when cars are driving over it, it's making a lot of noise, right? This is kind of a very, very old school way of actually making streets. And there are a couple of streets like that. And this is something where you don't really want preferably to live at, because it makes a lot of noise, especially on kind of around trains and stuff like that. And this is something when you just look at a house for the first time, and the train isn't at that moment just like passing by, you don't really think about it. And it could be that, I don't know, you have a shitty neighbor who's like always doing loud music and stuff like that. And I think that once you have bought a house at one time and you have been living in one, you kind of know what to look for. And it seems like that you are a little bit fortunate though.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of the Revive Stronger member site. Inside you'll find a thriving forum, a growing exercise library, presentations, research reviews, and courses. If you want to get involved, sign up via the description.
I'd say the good news is the people we bought this off, they moved down the street because they love this road. So that was a really good sign, because it was like, and when we came to visit this property, there was someone across the way that lived in a house opposite, and he was really friendly. So that kind of felt like you kind of got that vibe. But something I have realized is the modern flat was really good, because it's like just like box square, really wide doors. Whereas like trying to get, like, we can't get a table into the kitchen because it's too big.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's so narrow, and these rooms are so like higgledy. Like, you can see that thing in the corner. Like, what's that about? Like, this is just annoying. Why do I need this? Little thing?
It's good for Yoda.
Yeah, it's good for Grogu. So yeah, it's just awkwardly shaped and stuff. Man, trying to get like we can't get this wardrobe or chest of drawers up the stairs because it just wouldn't angle. You'd have to take it all apart and build it all back together. It's just like, okay. But yeah, very, very pleased. So feeling good about all of it. And actually, having weighed myself the last few days, I was worried my body weight was going to have just like dropped. But I managed things all right. I thought I would have underrated by a bit, but seemed to...
Which is normally what is happening for you, right? When you ramp up activity, you normally tend to lose a lot of weight very, very quickly.
I wonder if part of it is, like I said last time, because around 180 pounds, high 170s is like my lower end settling point. And I felt like I was almost drawn to it. Maybe it's like my body, like it doesn't want to go down because it's like, no, that's not where homeostasis is for you. So we're going to keep you here. So maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I did make sure to eat a bit more to just keep that higher and make sure that I didn't drop. But yeah, still sitting around 180 pounds, 3,600 calories now. So hopefully push that body weight up. And I'm already liking the fuller look of Steve. Like, it's funny how some of my weaknesses look so much better when I'm fat. Like my delts, my chest, they look better fat.
I could imagine though, if you're someone who's either genetically blessed or has built a tremendous physique now over a long time frame, that pushing up the body weight doesn't really become that much of an issue anymore, because you don't just look like someone who doesn't even lift, who has no detail whatsoever. You look actually then very, very, very big, isn't it? So
that's I've talked about it before, but I think that's a huge part of why people struggle initially to put the weight on. Because I always analogize it like a bag of rocks. Like a bag of rocks, Wait, no, it's a bag of rocks what I want. Basically, the bag, if like an empty bag, like you just fill it out, it just kind of looks like a bigger bag. Whereas a bag with rocks in, you like fill it out, it looks like there's lumps and bumps and stuff. That's like the muscle. So if you like, you could be a higher body fat percentage. Like I could be at 20% body fat, but have a little bit of abs, have like a cap delts, big chest, versus someone who doesn't have that musculature, that kind of rocks in the bag. They just look like kind of a balloon. So yeah, it's definitely something you have to encourage people to get through, because then they look up to people like maybe myself and they're like, oh, but you look lean at like when you're bigger. And it's like, yeah, but you have to go through I had to go through those periods of time not looking great to get to this point of looking all right.
I actually, so when I really got into lifting, right, I think same as so many people. I don't know how it is nowadays, but back then it was one of the go-to guys like Mark Bell, the Powercast, and of course, all of those guys he had were on gear. And you didn't really know that when you started out, right? But I found that those powerlifters had very pleasing, aesthetically pleasing physiques, at least for me, for my taste back then, of like big barrel chest, right? And not super ribbed or lean, but you could see that there is a bunch of meat underneath the fat. And that was just looking amazing. And I wanted to look like that, to be honest. But little did I know that I will probably never get to that point.
Yeah, it's kind of like there's pros and cons to like peak mass versus being lean. And one of the nice pros is just like filling out t-shirts. Like just looking big in like jumpers and stuff like that. Like it's nice to just feel and look big. So
yeah, but also that when people touch you, that is not just like, I don't know, putting underneath the shirt, right? They touch you and all of a sudden it's like a tsunami that is just like spreading all across your body. But it's like, you look big, you are high on body fat, but they touch you or slap you and it's just like, it's like hitting a, I don't know, concrete wall or so. That's what I had with Mike. Like,
yeah.
I do remember back in 2000, it must have been, I think 2018 when they were, no, must have been 2017 or 19. One of those times when we were actually at the gym at Bank.
Yeah.
Where we were like twice. When I gave him a hug, right, I was then, of course, hugging him, touching his back, patting him on the back, and it was like, just hard. Even though he looked like as if he's carrying a little bit more body fat, but it was just like hard. And I was just, holy shit, that's what I want. And then I was just like touching myself and it was just like jiggling. And that's what you want, right?
Yeah.
Look big in a t-shirt, being at a healthy body fat percentage, but also not feeling as if you're just now all of a sudden become a blob instead of, I don't know, a muscular guy.
I can think of Jabba the Hutt. I'm trying to think of someone who would be the other side of this. Or a Snorlax, and then it would be like a
Thanos.
Oh yeah, Thanos is a good example. He's just a big. Yeah. He's very muscular. Very muscular.
He looks like a proper drugged or enhanced powerlifter.
Yeah. So on the topic of, actually, I don't think this is on the topic of anything, but you were touching your chest.
Oh yeah.
And I think I can see a lack of padding as much. So are you still wearing the kind of the support and things?
Yeah,
oh, you are? Okay.
Still on. But yeah, no, things are exponentially improving in terms of my recovery. It's crazy, like honestly. I was just here today. My mom-in-law was over, and of course, as some people may know by now, she is my practicing doctor. Not anymore though. Ever since here at the beginning of the month, she is retired, so she's not my practitioner anymore, which is unfortunate because I'm not privileged anymore. I have to now to go and see the doctor and wait for 1.5 hours in order to actually be treated. Anyway, that's not the point that I want to make. I talked her through everything. She also knew and had a look right after the surgery, right? She knew what it looked like, and I saw her for the first time in like 2 weeks. I was showing it to her, and she was just like, wow, this is 3 weeks in total. Feels like a much longer time. And that's the same for me as well. It has increasingly gotten better. Each and every single day, you were able to see a difference. It's crazy. Like, it truly amazes me once again what the body is capable of doing and going through. Of course, there's still a lot of swelling, especially on the left side. It's now very much greenish. My entire left side is so funny because once I was like topless, I had the vest off because I take it off for like 1 to 2 to 3 hours by the end of the day, because on my piece of instructions it said that I could take the vest off for like 12 hours after like 2 weeks, which I felt was too early due to everything that I was going through. And there is actually basically no downside in wearing that vest for a longer period of time. Many people recommend to just wear it for like 6 weeks straight without any kind of interruptions. It's kind of different to what your doctor is saying, right? But my doctor said like after 2 weeks, you can lay it off for like 12 hours. I found it too early. And once again, there's no real downside to carrying or wearing it for a little bit longer. But I still wanted to actually let it breathe for a while, kind of tapering out of it. Like, this week, it's kind of 3 hours. Next week, perhaps like 4 or 5 hours, and then slowly fading away. And I was standing in front of Tony, topless or shirtless, and he was just looking at me and asked me whether I've painted my upper body, which was kind of funny, because it is kind of very greenish still. And also there are kind of hard lumps all over the place, which is still like very, very tender and painful to touch. I'm slowly getting my feelings back in my chest, which makes it also that I'm now feeling more and more so kind of painful areas. But things are once again improving rapidly. I'm able to now train my back again, my arms again, my delts again. Need to be a little bit careful not to push it too hard. And also in terms of the range of motion, for example, I can't really do any kind of vertical pulling as of yet. Not really a big deal because we've talked about it in the past. If you know how to target your back, you can even kind of mimic vertical pulling with horizontal pulls as well. And I just need to be careful not to overstretch it here because the stitches are here right underneath my armpit. And probably if everything goes well, I may be able to actually do very, very light work for my chest already here next week, because that's then 4 weeks post-surgery. Awesome. And after 6 weeks, it's normally said that you should be good to very much be ready again to then go back light. But also at the same time, the consensus is that after 4 weeks, you can slowly start to see how things feel and really just go off by what the body is telling you. So, yeah, that's the situation right now.
You just maybe don't want to get like a crazy chest pump.
That's true. That's true. But my chest is also very, very flat at the moment. My mom-in-law, when she saw my chest, was like, man, your chest has gotten small. And I was like, no, but at the same time, it was probably also due to the visual appearance of the loose skin, the glands that I had, that made my chest appear much, much bigger than it actually is, because of course it drags it forward, right? And also then the compression vest, it really compresses everything around here, so the cell swelling is completely kind of gone in that area. And also if you're not training at all in that body part as well, it's not a surprise that it's very, very flat. But just from the looks of things, I am getting more and more confident as well. Like, I've never had a chest like this. And it looks like, I can say that this is what a chest is supposed to look like. And this is not even the final result. I can still feel lumps and swelling here and there. Just give it another like 3 to 4, 5, 6 weeks, something like that. And it's said that the entire healing process and before you are able to see the final result can take up to 6 months. But just give it a couple of weeks, and I think that I will actually be able to say like, this is what a chest is supposed to look like.
I'm super happy for you. Like, I'm so glad, because I know when we first did the update, it was like, things haven't gone to plan, but now it sounds like everything is going like as good as it could be. I saw the photo on Instagram, and for people who haven't seen it, definitely go Pascal_Floor. If you're not already following, go follow Pascal first of all, and then check out his post. And I mean, you can see the previous posts of kind of where it was. And I saw the recent update, and I was like, wow, that's healed up so quickly. Like, it looked like substantially better. Like, there was a little bit left to just heal up. Yeah. So I know how much this surgery and the whole process has meant.
And it's even better now than the picture. And I took that picture on the weekend. I think it was on Saturday or so. And that's now a couple of days that have gone past. And I can tell you, like, each and every single day, you are able to see a difference. And that's once again so crazy to me, but once again shows just like how interesting and how fascinating the human body is, what it's capable of dealing with, and how quickly it's capable of dealing with those things. And yeah, I mean, it's even getting better, which is, I'm already happy now. And I know that I will be even happier when the entire swelling is gone, when there's nothing that is keeping me from moving the way that I normally move. The things are just feeling, once again, very normal. I can then finally pose again, because that's something that I shouldn't be doing, right? Hitting kind of, I don't know, the
most muscular.
or a side relaxed or something like that.
Right.
Side triceps or side biceps or so, right, where you're really squeezing the back, something like that. I would love to do this just to see what my chest looks like, but I should wait for a couple of weeks before I'm actually doing that. But I'm very, very much looking forward to that. And someone has asked me a very interesting question that I wanted to share, and that is, if I had gone through the surgery, if I weren't involved with bodybuilding and physique optimization. And I find this to be a very interesting question. And I would like to think yes, definitely. But in all honesty, I don't know, right? Because due to, of course, something like physique optimization, you are way more focused on certain body parts. Things may bother you more than before. And we can just like take a sample size when we just look around at society. I think many people just go through life without actually worrying about those things too much. And maybe there is a worry. Maybe they know like, I'm carrying a little bit too much fat that I would like to get rid of. But as we know, it's never really a proper reason for them to then go out and change something, because the pain is simply not there. And for me, the pain has always been there. Right? So I like to think, yes, I would have done it anyway. But I can't say with 100% certainty, obviously.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, because competing, but bodybuilding and physique optimization makes you hyper aware of things that other people just probably wouldn't see. Like, I wonder if there'd be people that would look at your physique pre-operation and just be like, I don't see anything. Like, there probably would be, and there'd be people like myself or other people, especially people who have had gyno, but other individuals who are like into this, they'd be like, no, I can see something, like, well, I can see the lumps there. So it's interesting. Like, would you even notice? But I imagine, at least for you, that sensation of you'd feel it, and it potentially would still be uncomfortable for you. So but it is like one of those things. It's like, I don't know.
And
who
I
knows?
assume, just based on my observation on reading, because you can find like different forums and stuff like that on the internet. And if you dig through those things, you can definitely see that there are a lot of people who are not in any kind of physique optimization sport or so, especially when you take a look at their pictures and stuff like that, that they do it because it's just not nice. You can't really go to the beach in a confident manner. Right? There was even like one dude, right? He was fairly young, in his early 20s, and he had really like proper boobies, which is then also, of course, pseudo gynecomastia with a lot of fat tissue, right? But in an instance like this, you're not going to the beach, man, especially not with your mates. And then of course, you are going to take care of that.
Yeah, I think for when it starts impeding quality of life, that's when it's like, it's very much, because yeah, you want people to accept themselves and accept their bodies, but if it's impeding your quality of life and it's making you feel bad, like every day you're feeling that, I would say it's definitely worth doing something.
And it's just human nature. It always has been to try to self-improve. Of course, due to now social media, there's an even bigger attention on just the visual aspect of change, but also then filters.
Some of them are crazy.
Yeah, but filters have also caused a different self-perception for many people. That's why at least many people assume that there is a direct correlation between the rise of Instagram and selfies with then cosmetic surgery, especially amongst younger female individuals, but also, of course, males, but especially female individuals around the face. So I don't know, you're watching something like Love Island and stuff like that. And I watch like Bachelor. And whenever you see like The Bachelor and you take a look at the female participants, I would even say like 90% of those influencers and the females who are participating there are having like fake lips, have done their nose, maybe kind of lifting their cheeks and all that kind of stuff, right? It's crazy how much they have done. And I'm always wondering, like, is that something, just because I find it, I wouldn't do it for myself, and I question whether this is the right approach. Isn't that maybe just like the development of society, right? Because just society is changing, and especially also due to the digital age, everything that is going on, our lives will actually happen more and more so in like
this.
the term that is being thrown around right now is kind of the metaverse, right? And only because we haven't grown up with that. Is that something that is necessarily wrong? Maybe it's just like the development and evolvement of human society, right? So who am I to judge? I still don't really find it attractive, but that's I don't have to, opinion. Right? It's my opinion, and it doesn't really matter. And I don't have to put it underneath their pictures and be like, I think you look more attractive like earlier. God. Like, I hate stuff like that. Those, who asked you for your opinion? As if that person does it to please you, right? But yeah, I think, go ahead.
I guess in some ways it's similar to like getting a tattoo, for example. Like some people like tattoos, some people don't. Some people like tattoos in certain places and not other places, like across the face or the skull. Like some people find that too far, but on your arm, that's fine. It's like, well, it's just opinion at this point. Like, I think, it's crazy to see the development in terms of like, it's particularly for women, like the bum. Like it was always a case of like, does my bum look big in this? And now it's gone to getting butt implants because I want my bum to look big in everything and look almost abnormally, like unachievably big almost in some instances. And it's just like, okay. But I can't remember what book I was reading. It was talking about how like humans are attracted to extremes. So it's like I think it's in Sir Mix-a-Lot, like big butts. He talks about like the perfect ratio of like hips to like waist and all this. It's like, well, that is, but if you can get even more extreme, the human body's like, is attracted to something that's even more like unachievable in some ways. But I think you can probably go too far that way too. So like muscularity, and everyone has their own taste as well. Because
we can see the development there as well over the past couple of years. We brought it up a couple of times when I was the other day, I think it was in November or December, Fight Club was actually back up on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched that movie in a very long time. So I thought like, let's give it a try, which is, and it made me realize how good of a movie that actually was and still is. But there, like Brad Pitt, everyone kind of like 10, 15 years ago, everyone was like, man, Brad Pitt, jacked and muscular. And now he's just like, due to the age of social media, everyone is just like making fun of a dude like that. Because the standard has actually then increased so crazily, right? And here we are. Everyone wants to be now a Chris Bumstead, when, of course, that is unattainable for the vast majority of people. But you just take a look around and you're confronted with just like amazing physiques, right? And that's, I think, once again, I don't really think that it's necessarily wrong or right. It's just what society appreciates in that period of time. And we know from human history that those things always have changed. Decades, years, centuries. There was always kind of a different style and different visual appeal for people, and what is attractive here today and what people want to look like here today will probably be something that is completely different in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now. So is it worth to now become the biggest version of yourself? We'll find out in 10 years from now. Maybe you'll regret that.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
Yeah, it's all, I think ultimately for me, and I think you'll probably agree, Pascal, all these sort of things like body, like anything in terms of like your physique and what you're trying to change, you've got to, as long as you're enjoying the process and it's ultimately bringing you satisfaction, like have at it. But it's like that old, don't know, the average guy really wants a six pack and then they get the six pack and they're like, I'm not happy. Having six pack doesn't equate happiness. It's like for us, and that's why we always talk about really enjoying the process. It's not like I'm trying to attain a certain physique and once I'm there, I'm happy. No, I'm happy progressing and knowing I'm progressing and enjoying the process of that. That's where the joy of bodybuilding comes in, which is partly why I've not gone, and maybe same for you, Pascal, but one of the reasons maybe not gone into the enhanced side is because I can get what I want from bodybuilding naturally, and I don't have to look like a super jack guy and just look like a pretty jack guy.
Yeah.
Like an averagely jack guy versus like a superhero or like a something like that. I can get what I need out of it. And I think that's the message we try and provide with natural bodybuilding, is because I think people do assume, oh, when I look like that, I'm going to be happy. And they jump the gun towards steroid use. And I think it's great that there's people like Jared Feather, for example, who will say, no, like do it naturally, like get to a certain point, then maybe go, because it's a big decision to go down that route. And maybe you get the enjoyment you need from natural bodybuilding, or like you realize, like I also would think this, that if I was to go enhanced, like I'm not going to have amazing potential to like go pro as an enhanced. Like I'd struggle to go pro as a natural bodybuilder. So like the chances are going that route ultimately. And then it's like, well, do I really want to, would being that much bigger bring me that much more joy? Maybe, but I'm pretty happy how I can look now. And maybe there's some downsides that would make me quite unhappy, possibly, I don't know.
No, absolutely. And I think that it's super important that you don't get too hung up on like a specific outcome, because what it is that you deem perfect and appropriate here today will always change tomorrow. Of course, not directly tomorrow, like literally speaking, but you get the idea. Your personal preferences and your life is changing. And that's why these things can be flexible. And that's why I'm also not a big fan of when people are saying like, yeah, it's all or nothing. And also, these are most of the people who are then dropping out after 3 years anyway. I don't know a lot of people anymore who have been doing this as long as we do. And those who I know are the ones who have already been doing this since such a long time, and maybe even longer than we have. There aren't really a lot of people that really stick with it, because most of the time it's actually quite boring stuff, and you really have to learn to love the process. It's not instant gratification. often people realize that there needs to be even more patience and work to it than first anticipated. It's not the promised, like, okay, in the first 3 years, you're going to see 90% of your genetic potential. Most of the time, that's not what actually then happens. And then people stop caring about it because it isn't as rewarding as they thought at first, right? But to me, it is, because it has taught me so much more. It has taught me like work ethic, patience, critical thinking skills, stuff like that. And just constantly working on improving myself on something that I think that I have now a much better understanding is something that is pretty rewarding. And I think that then this is the time where the true work is actually first taking place. Because the first initial honeymoon phases, you will just like, no matter what you're doing, you will see some progress. Also in terms of knowledge. But at some point you will hit a limit or hit a wall basically. And to climb over the wall, you actually have to then put in more work and effort. And that is something that is truly rewarding to me, to be honest. Yeah.
I think it's really well said. And what you described there is basically what initially made me want to do this in terms of being a personal trainer, was because I kind of went through that kind of quite ignorant phase of just training hard and thinking I was eating clean and thought I had a good understanding of things, but then stalled for ages. And then I restarted my journey in terms of like fitness and bodybuilding, and I started learning more, and I took myself to new heights through that learning process in education. I was like, wow, first of all, the human body is amazing, which is something you've already said this time around. And this was after my accident. And I was like, if I can do this, man, I want to help other people do this, because it made me feel so good to be able to feel in control of what was happening to my physique. And I'd felt so out of control over that kind of recovery period. So to hand that down, I think you're very much the same, where it's like you get so much good from this in terms of health, but also mental well-being and like skill sets, and you enjoy it so much. You kind of want to almost pass that down to other people who maybe are in that position where I once was, where I was just struggling and just hitting a brick wall and like investing so much time and effort into it, and ultimately not seeing the fruits of my labor, and not maybe even understanding about the appropriate fruits of labor I should be seeing. So then to be able to hand that down through this podcast and through our coaching, like that was a big reason I wanted to start the whole thing in the first place.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that once again, this is also something that has been quite a common topic throughout our prep, of like people have their switch on for too long most of the time. It's like, I don't know, you're in your household and you just turn the light switch on and you just leave it on. Even when you go to bed, it kind of sucks up energy, right? And that's the same here as well. I think we have gotten to the point where we know when to turn the light switch on and when to kind of shut it off again. It's like when I go to the gym, it's kind of dim it. Yeah. I go to the gym, it's go time. I'm focused, I'm concentrated. And when I'm getting out of the gym, I leave the stuff behind. That doesn't mean that that it's a burden or so, that I just want to get it over with. No, I just know when it's the right time to focus on the right things. And that tremendously helps to keep on going, to continue loving that process. And I never even, I can't even recall the last time when I thought like, I can't be bothered to train. I will just stay at home. I can't recall the last time that something like this happened. It has been it is ingrained so much inside of me now that it's once again falling back to the thing. I never ever need willpower or motivation to train. Never ever. It's just something that I do. And I don't even think about it anymore. And I think that people can be conflicted when it comes to my opinion about it, but I think that this is what it is that you eventually, or where it is that you eventually want to get to, if you want to do something that takes a long time, or if you want to master something in your life. Because otherwise it will become at some point very much a burden. Especially if you want to, I don't know, become good at something, it takes a long time. It really takes a long time.
Kind of reminds me a bit like, I don't know, something like caffeine use or something. like if you have to have like a pre-workout every time you train, there's only so much, like you're going to have to take more, and then you're going to have to back off. And then what you're going to do when you back off, you can't go train. It's like you're relying on a crutch there with the pre-workout. It's the same with if you're relying on motivation, like you watch motivational videos and you move, from, my videos, and then you move to like Arnold's videos, and then you go to Ronnie Coleman, and then you go to like JP's videos. It's like, where do you go from, like, if you're having to rely on these other things, or like a training partner or a certain gym environment, ultimately, like, just needs to become like a habit, and you enjoy the process, and you don't hype yourself up so much. You don't kind of, like you said, these are all short-term solutions to something that is ultimately a very slow burn. And so you just got to get involved with it being a habit, like brushing your teeth.
I don't know how you feel about it, Steve, because I try to be as reflective about my behavior and my stance on the matter. And it's very, very tough at times, because when it comes to this, especially when you're a coach, you can't expect that what it is that you deem as appropriate is also what other people like, what they enjoy, what they should be doing. And that is, of course, very, very hard to remind yourself, because you have an image of the world and how the world is supposed to be. And if someone then is not acting accordingly, it can be quite hard for you to understand or wrap your head around that. So what I want to know, Steve, is when it comes to someone saying like, oh man, I just need a break from XYZ. And they are just like dropping completely, in the sense of like not training at all, or just like not tracking things at all, because they rationalized it in their head that this is what they need in order to come clean again. How do you feel about it? Because to me personally, it always seems like not the right solution. Maybe this is also where the experience comes into play, because I've seen it so often that people, they convince themselves basically that, all right, no, this is what I need. This is the break that I need. And it nearly always turns out that it wasn't the solution. How do you feel about it in general when it comes to something like this?
Yeah. So it's nothing, to me, it's not something that appeals to me. It's something that inherently I feel a little bit like, it's like, that feels wrong to just like completely pull off the gas. But I'm traditionally someone who is into bodybuilding as much as we are, which isn't every one of our clients or people listening to this. They're the type of people that do struggle to switch off. And sometimes we would be better to dial it back a little bit. But there are the individuals normally who are saying this are the ones who generally needed a little bit of a push in the other direction. They need encouragement to keep going. And it's hard, because as much as I like to try and put myself in their shoes, which I think is ultimately the best way normally to try and troubleshoot these sort of things, because people have different lives, their different psychology and all these different factors. And you can never perfectly do it, because I can't, like, if we could just like follow our, like, they're like, I'm struggling to hit my macros. You follow them through the day and they're just like, I don't know, quite obviously just not really trying. So it's just a case of having that kind of really honest discussion. And it's like do they seem like they're in a position where they would be burnt out and where a break is needed? Or are they someone who's not really giving it their all, and they're just kind of being their own worst enemy in a sense? And they're just like, I'm so scared of failing that they're not willing to even start. Because some people just need to start, and they're like, they start a little bit and they don't do things perfectly, so then they just give up everything. And it's about kind of trying to build up levels of adherence for them versus the other way. Because I have some clients who might listen to this who are black and white, who are very much all or nothing. And I really try and over time have developed ways to get them better. Because very often with that type of person, I find very good at cutting, terrible at massing. And so they spend the majority, like they're almost 50-50 or more in the way of cutting. And I'm trying to really get them to keep some of that due diligence during their mass phases and not go so psycho almost during their cut phases where they need that break. So yeah, I guess I haven't really answered your question, but I'm trying to diagnose it and see how appropriate it is for that person and see if I can taper that response. Because again, that's like you said, first, rather than going on or off, which is that's what is off, can we just like, maybe we don't need to track carbs and fats, we just go protein and calories, or just protein and body weight or something. Or like maybe we don't need to train 5 days a week, we can pull that down to 3, something like this, versus just not, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. What it really boils down to for us is also trying to break free of our biases, our preconceptions, our belief system for us, what we deem appropriate though. And that can be very, very hard. And it's like you said, trying to put yourself in the shoes of the individual is the way to go. And that can be very, very challenging, especially when you are having a completely different approach to it and you're convinced that the other thing is the appropriate thing. And it must be said that I also had instances where it really was beneficial for that individual, even though that I thought that it's not going to turn out the way that that they imagined it to turn out, and then it turned out that way, which is great. But more times than others, it's actually getting worse, and I'm trying to find a sensible approach or more balanced approach of like, okay, hey, we don't need to always push 100%. Let's find out what's the bare minimum that we can do. Most of the time, when it comes to training and nutrition, it's actually quite simplistic. For example, hitting the total amount of calories and having sufficient amount of training stimulus. There's not really more to it if you really think about it. If you tick off those boxes, you already do a lot, right? And you can't tell me that this requires a lot of focus, dedication, and attention. And if that's where you're struggling already, maybe something else is really off. And maybe this is something that we've talked about last week already, that people may not really like it, but they think that this is what they have to do in order to look a specific way. So, yeah, very, very hard, but always something that I'm dealing with every now and then as well to, convince someone that they don't have to be in an either-or situation, and that often doing something trumps being on it 100% and banging off again. And I've had it so often in my life already with things that I was interested in. I started it, I became decently good at that, and then once the honeymoon phase was over and you needed to put in the work and effort and things got uncomfortable because you needed to actually work for it, then I was just like, nah, can't be bothered. And now I'm looking back and be like, if I had stuck with it for the last 10 years and was doing and continuing doing that, at least to a bare minimum, I would be very good at it right now.
I'm in complete agreement. Yeah, it's trying to encourage and get them away from that black and white, all or nothing mentality, which so often does not work well for people. Well said.
Yeah, we are very much up on time.
Yes,
longer chat this time. But yeah, Steve, do you want to end the show this time? Want to say something in your new flat, apartment, house?
Yeah, from myself, Grogu, and the boys in the corner and behind me, thank you for listening. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Wish me best of luck unpacking all this crap and trying to, get watch, if you're watching on YouTube, over the coming years, this studio come office develop like you've seen Pascal's, and enjoy that process. If you've got any tips about housing stuff, feel free to DM me on Instagram because it's going to all be helpful. And other than that, thank you everyone for listening. And if you are on Spotify, remember you can rate us. So you can rate us out of 5. Just give us a 5-star. That would be great. We've got over, I think, 130 now, which is great. It may even be more than that. So that's really cool.
Thank you very much.
And then
guys.
if you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, give us a like, comment below. And we appreciate you as always. Thank you for listening. So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Floor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.